to being either neutral or a little against Biden, because then they don't have to worry about a progressive, which they hate way more than they would hate Trump, right? So since you don't have to worry about that, and they all know Biden's going to lose. I mean, you could see the sweat on Joe Scarborough's forehead every morning. And James Carville came out yesterday with Bill Maher and said, what are we, crazy? Finally, David Ignatius at the Washington Post, finally people are catching up to what I'm saying, which is, guys, this isn't your normal battle where you dig into your trenches. Do you really think democracy is on the line? Because my hair's on fire.
Right.
Trump is promising not only imprisonment, but death for his political opponents.
Yep.
And people aren't getting it. They keep projecting normalness onto Trump when he is not normal. Will he actually do those things? Yes. He will definitely imprison his political opponents. He has said it. Bannon has said it. Roger Stone has said it. They've said it 100 times. They're going to imprison people for no goddamn reason. His former defense secretary just yesterday said, yes, he considered arresting and imprisoning General McRaven and General McChrystal in the last term. And back then there was brakes in the car. So democracy is actually on the line. To go in with a wounded antelope is madness, total madness. So I think even the Morning Joe guys know.
Cenk is on a book tour. Now let's have a little cutout segment here, because you tell me how these fools, or how these people, Cenk Uygur, how is he not bringing what mainstream media does to independent media? Isn't this what happens? Somebody goes on writes a book. They're on CNN. They're on Fox. They're on a morning show. Good Morning America. Everything. That's what we're doing now. So he can sell a book. He's having these conversations, because you could have had this conversation over Biden a while ago, but you have a book to sell, which makes it suspect, even the conversation. But anyway, let's take it for what it is. When I saw it pop up, it was like, I know they have opposite views because I studied the propaganda. So he is more, I'm trying to get Biden out, and what's his name? David Pakman is more rah Biden, like really rah Biden. And in this video, you can kind of see that exchange a little bit. I mean, they're intentionally trying to keep it nice because he is selling the book, so they're keeping it a little more cordial. But this is a disagreement. I'm going to go back a little bit to about 5 minutes.
About 400 Democrats in the country who would do better than Joe Biden. I mean, look at that way of thinking. The only Democrat who could win is Joe Biden. Why? Is the rest of the Democratic Party totally pathetic?
No. My argument is less about that. And by the way, I don't know that I'm any more of a Biden fan than you are. I'm just trying to think about this as strategically as possible. The act of saying at this point that a president who has announced they are running for re-election has an okay economic record and has had some tangible advancements for labor, et cetera, which we can talk about, saying we're actually going to pull them out. We're either going to run a primary or we're just going to anoint someone. It's hard for me to imagine it helps.
No, it's totally, Look, we have a massive disagreement there. So let me explain why. Okay?
Yeah, please.
And this case is almost never made, so probably nobody's even heard this case before.
Okay.
So first of all, heated primaries are a wonderful thing. The examples against heated primaries go back decade after decade. Oh, in 1972 and 1837. No, guys. In 2020, the Democrats had a heated primary. They won. In 2016, the Republicans had a really the most heated primary in American history, and they won. Why? Because the extra media coverage you get from a heated primary helps your side make your case to the American people. The Democrats are not making their case at all. Whereas if we had Governor Beshear from Kentucky and Governor Shapiro.
I wonder if that's what do you think of that theory? That's an interesting theory from Cenk here. That is an interesting theory, that because if you take the 2020 who had a primary in 2020? The Democrats, they won. Who had a primary? In 2016, everybody had a primary. But who had the most heated primary? Who had the most eyes focused? And everybody knows it was the one that Trump was in. That's when they gave him all those billions of dollars in free advertisement. Let's finish up a couple more minutes of this here.
From Pennsylvania against Joe Biden, they'd all be talking about how great the Democratic case is and how they would be better at executing that Democratic case. I don't believe in anointing anyone. It's absurd. I don't believe that president is king and we must abide by his rule. I don't believe in line of succession, and hence the crown princess Kamala Harris should be anointed next. No, I believe in something very simple: democracy. It works. Give me a primary today, and I will give you a much stronger Democratic Party.
Couple thoughts on that, and this is interesting. And by the way, I would love a Democratic primary and make Joe Biden win it again. Like, I get why the Democratic Party's not doing it. I understand their thing is we've got some.
He would love a Democratic primary. That is absolutely new news to me, because I've covered how he's a Joe Biden simp. Now, and I've covered I think I did the video I had ripped from YouTube, and I put it on Twitter of him arguing against Marianne Williamson. And then several videos subsequently saying how there's no serious primary challenger. So you can't say I want a primary only with specific candidates that I want in. It's a primary is a primary, regardless who decides to run. So that is odd that he's now taken. It feels to me that is a change, at least in maybe I don't even know what the right word, the essence of how he speaks about this topic.
And we must abide by his rule. I don't believe in line of succession, and hence the crown princess Kamala Harris should be anointed next.
Voices,
I believe in something very simple.
It's a little insulting when you do that to a person you're talking to.
Today, and I will give you a much stronger Democratic Party.
Couple thoughts on that, and this is interesting. And by the way, I would love a Democratic primary and make Joe Biden win it again. Like, I get why the Democratic Party's not doing it. I understand their thing is we've got someone in the Oval Office. Our best shot is just go with that. I would love a primary.
I don't honestly, David, I don't think that's why they're doing it.
Well, they're a corporation.
David, hold on. Everyone, and I know, everyone in our lifetimes has said the rule: an incumbent under 50 points is very likely to lose. So they keep talking about incumbent advantage, and that's actually not true. The incumbent advantage exists in Montana, where name recognition is the name of the game. But at the presidential level, everybody's going to know the Democratic candidate in the general election. Literally everyone is. Name recognition is not an issue. Incumbency actually weighs you down as president. It's actually a negative thing. They get to attack you on all the different issues. So the Democrats don't want Biden just because they believe in the power of incumbency. And maybe some of them do genuinely. But the real reason is they believe in the power of authoritarian rule. If you ask the DNC, they are never going to go with an outsider. They are never going to go with someone who isn't already the incumbent, because they believe in the current power infrastructure.
Agreed.
But us as Democratic voters need to rebel and say, I didn't sign up for authoritarian rule. That's the other side.
Let's see what David has to say.
So two thoughts on this hypothetical primary that we both agree won't happen but would like to see. One is,
by the way, I don't agree to that. I'm trying to force that
primary
in every
all right, fair.
And tyt.com/dropout, because the best way to get here is that Joe Biden stops being an egomaniac and worrying about.
Fair. So you think it might happen. I don't think it will happen. Fine. That's a disagreement. But here's two thoughts based on what you said. One, the Republican primary right now is a version of what you described, meaning they seem to sort of agree on the package, much like you're saying Democratic voters agree on the platform and why it's better than what Republicans are offering. Many of those people in the Republican primary are less crazy than Trump and probably would be more likely to actually do the things that they want to do. Trump's blowing them out of the water without even going to the debates. So that's one thing. It's not obvious to me that when voters are presented with other people who are younger and less crazy with the same ideas, on the Republican side, they're doing something very different. Republican voters are different, and you can make that case in a second. Second observation, we have some polling of Williamson, Kennedy, and Biden. Now, my opinion is Kennedy and Williamson are not people like the ones you described. But
so this is the point I made earlier.
I actually think if there were a primary right now and Biden is in it, I think Biden wins the primary.
Wow, that's crazy.
The only
that's
way that
crazy.
He wins the primary is
I told you he's a simp.
Brainwashes every one of the Democratic voters into compliance.
Okay.
But I don't think they're going to. And so that's a giant difference between 2016, 2020, and 2024. Why? Because in 2016 and 2020, MSNBC and CNN hit progressives and Bernie Sanders harder than Fox News did, constantly battering, because they're in favor of corporate rule and establishment Democrats. But
Okay,
in
we're
this
gonna be
case,
closing
it's
this in
not
just a
really.
second
Look, I
after he
wish it
answers
was
this
Marianne
question.
versus Biden, and I'm going to vote for Marianne if those are the choices. And I'm going to do that easily. I think she's not only the better candidate in terms of policy, I think she has a better chance of winning. I think everyone has a better chance of winning than Biden. But okay, put that aside. What is
now? I must say, in no way I believe that Cenk thinks Marianne Williamson can really win a primary. There's no way that I think that. If they open up the primary, RFK Jr. is literally doubling her support in some polls. So how would it skip over him to her? It's absurd. It's absurd. So yeah, I think he wasn't finished. Let me let him, I guess, finish here.
much more likely is a Governor Shapiro or a Governor Bashir or a Governor Whitmer against Biden.
Those are terrible.
Okay, well,
terrible. Those are just younger versions of Joe Biden.
Actually, probably
just younger versions of Joe Biden
to being either neutral or a little against Biden, because then they don't have to worry about a progressive, which they hate way more than they would hate Trump, right? So since you don't have to worry about that, and they all know Biden's going to lose. I mean, you could see the sweat on Joe Scarborough's forehead every morning. And James Carville came out yesterday with Bill Maher and said, "What are we?"
That is true. That is true. Nick and I, in particular, do a lot of coverage of Morning Joe. I literally have to check in on that show every morning. That's where I start my, at least not after my reading, then my actual watching, because I do both. I do reading, then I watch. So the first thing I always watch is Morning Joe, because that's how I know to even go look for other stories. I know I want to see what is the mainstream wants to be the top story. What is the people who the donors want to be the top story? That's the reason why I go to him. And they're in panic mode. I think I'm at least on segment 3 or 4 of panic mode about Joe Biden. So to the point that he's making here.
Crazy. Finally, David Ignatius at the Washington Post. Finally,
Yes.
people are catching up to what I'm saying, which is, guys, this isn't your normal battle where you dig into your trenches. Do you really think democracy is on the line? Because my hair's on fire.
Right.
Trump is promising not only imprisonment, but death for his political opponents.
Yep.
And people aren't getting it. They keep projecting normal.
I think the only thing, and I hate how this is a over magnification. In my opinion, he says something to the effect. This isn't verbatim, but back in the past, he referred to back in the day, something like that. Back in the day, or back at some faraway time, you know, back when America was really good, I guess, in his opinion. If you believe all the historical fairy tale stories, he says something that person, it would be, I guess he considers him like a traitor or treason. And treason, the punishment for treason was death. That's so he makes a reference to that, saying that, I don't stretch that to mean he's making a threat. He's saying that's simply what he's saying, that this same crime, like if I say the crime of murder in 1800 would get this, I mean, it's just stating the fact, in my opinion. But they're taking it and run with it. And now it's that he's threatening political opponents with death. That's new. Let's see if he explains that part.
Onto Trump when he is not normal. Will he actually do those things? Yes, he will definitely imprison his political opponents. He has said it. Bannon has said it. Roger Stone has said it. They've said it 100 times.
They will imprison him too. They're doing it now
for no goddamn reason. His former defense secretary just yesterday said yes, he considered arresting and imprisoning General McRaven and General McChrystal in the last term. And back then there was brakes in the car. So democracy is actually on the line. To go in with a wounded antelope is madness, total madness. So I think even the Morning Joe guys know, bring in, I mean, for them, it's Newsom and Whitmer, right? For me, it's Shapiro and Bashir, because I think they're more likely to win. They won in swing states, they won in red states, and they're more personal, slightly better policies. But give me anyone but Biden. I don't want to purposely lose this election. I don't want to go quietly into that good night.
So to not make the entire interview just about this, I think this is a good segue into what you argue in the book is actually the state of the country when it comes to the political spectrum, which is that you argue that this is fundamentally a progressive country. This is an argument I've also been making. When you really do issue-oriented polling and the wording is...
So they're talking about, they're slightly going off on a little bit about the book because they're not going to go anywhere. He's going to still promote Joe Biden as if he's a great thing, and he's going to keep going on this tour about that. Now, this is crazy because if Cenk is willing to go outside of the box, that means the people that paid him the money, the 20 mil, is fine with him going outside of the box. And like he said, the David Ignatius story in I think it was the Washington Post, just opened up the floodgates for people to really come out and say what they think about this candidacy.